For Liliana, winning her boss's heart felt like the final battle. She had no idea the war was just beginning. The entire internet branded her a parasite, and she was forced to learn that loving a billionaire meant your life was no longer your own. The only question remaining was whether what they shared was strong enough to survive the brutal glare of the public eye. Welcome back to Proudly Black Stories, my beautiful and amazing Pride family. Your support has been truly incredible, and I promise to keep striving to deliver the most compelling stories as I evolve and improve each day. If this happens to be the first time you've stumbled upon one of my videos, please comment with where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button to officially become part of the Pride family. And now let's lose ourselves in today's story. The first time Liliana Fischer truly registered on Hillary Smith's radar, she was in a standoff with his head of security, her voice echoing in the lobby of Smith Holdings on a Tuesday morning in late September. He was making his way to a board meeting, his mind already executing moves 3 steps ahead of a negotiation that would either preserve 200 jobs or obliterate them, when her voice cut through the marble and glass atrium, a sound as clear and defiant as a bell. I appreciate that you have procedures, but I am telling you that my interview is scheduled for 9 o'clock. And the time is now 8:57. So you can either make a call or you can explain to the person who's about to hire me why I showed up late. Hillary came to a halt, partially concealed by a structural column, and watched. She was young, her mid-20s, he guessed, wearing a navy suit that was straining to project an image of expense it couldn't quite achieve. Her dark hair was secured in a bun that was already beginning to stage a quiet rebellion with delicate wisps framing her temples. She held a worn leather portfolio against her sternum like a piece of armor, her chin high, her posture impeccable. The security chief, Marcus, a former Marine who was notoriously hard to shake, seemed genuinely thrown off balance. Hillary stepped into the open. "Marcus, are we having a problem here?" Both of their heads snapped toward him. The woman's eyes, a deep brown that were practically crackling with indignation, locked with his, and a strange, uncomfortable sensation twisted in his gut. He dismissed it. Marcus's posture stiffened. "Mr. Smith, sir, this young woman insists she has an interview, but her name isn't on the visitor manifest." "Fischer," the woman corrected, staring directly at Hillary. "Liliana Fischer, 9 a.m. with," she paused, glancing at her phone, "Jennifer Kowalski in Human Resources." Hillary produced his own phone, quickly swiping through his calendar. Jennifer had sent him the interview schedule the previous week. He'd greenlit it with only a passing glance. Executive assistant position, a replacement for the woman who had relocated to Boston. There it was, Fischer Liliana, 9 o'clock. He turned the screen to Marcus. "She's cleared. See that she gets upstairs." Marcus gave a sheepish nod. Liliana let out a slow breath, the tension visibly melting from her shoulders. She then looked at Hillary, really looked at him, and he saw the precise moment when the recognition of who he was clicked into place. Her eyes widened almost imperceptibly as a flush of color crept up her neck. "Thank you," she said, her voice completely altered, softer now. He hated that. "Don't thank me," he clipped out, already turning toward the bank of elevators. "Just make sure you're not late." He felt her gaze follow him as he departed. He never looked back. 3 hours later, a knock sounded on his office door. Hillary was nursing his 4th coffee and dissecting contracts when Jennifer entered. "The Fischer interview," Jennifer announced, taking a seat without an invitation, which was precisely why he valued her. "She is very, very good. She holds a double major in communications and business from Butler, interned at Lilly, working for a startup that went belly up, and spent the last year freelancing. She's sharp, meticulously organized, and she doesn't put up with any nonsense." Hillary's eyes remained on his work. "Then offer her the job. There's just one thing." His head came up. "What kind of thing?" "She's 24 and she's..." Jennifer paused, choosing her next word with care. "Unforgettable. You're well aware of the board's sensitivity to optics." Hillary deliberately set down his pen. "Are you genuinely telling me we're about to pass on a highly qualified candidate because she happens to be young and beautiful?" "I'm telling you, I want to give her the draw, but I need you to be prepared, especially with Claudette's attorneys still circling like vultures." The mere mention of his ex-wife's name caused a muscle in his jaw to pulse. The divorce had been official for 3 years, but Claudette continued to treat it as an ongoing conflict she was determined to win at any cost. "Hire her," Hillary said, his tone flat and final. "Anyone with an issue can take it up with me personally." Jennifer's lips curved into a smile. "That's what I was banking on you to say. She can start Monday." Hillary turned his focus back to his contracts, already trying to erase the conversation from his mind. Liliana's first day commenced at 7:30 in the morning, a full 30 minutes before she was officially due. She had learned long ago that being early meant you were on time, and being on time meant you were already falling behind. The office was already humming with energy, a veritable hive of ambitious figures in costly suits, moving with unshakable purpose. She located her desk, situated just outside Hillary's office doors. It was a sleek, contemporary workstation featuring dual monitors and a phone system that looked sophisticated enough to direct orbital traffic. Jennifer appeared holding a coffee. He gets here at 8, leaves around 7, sometimes much later. He drinks his coffee, black no sugar, and if you fail to remind him, he will completely forget to eat lunch. He can be curt, but it's not malicious. Don't take it personally. Liliana nodded, committing every word to memory. What else should I know? His daughter Sloane. She's 16, so she'll call periodically. Any calls from his daughter, you patch her through immediately. His ex Claudette will try to get a hold of him too. On that, use your discretion, but the default is that he's unavailable. Jennifer's face hardened with sincerity. He's a fundamentally good man, Liliana. Maybe the best person I've ever had the privilege to work for. But life has put him through the ringer. He doesn't... She trailed off, searching for the right words. He keeps his walls up. So if you're looking for warmth, you're in the wrong place. What you can expect is uncompromising competence, and his respect provided you earn it. At 8:03, the elevator chimed its doors, sliding open to reveal Hillary Smith, flanked by 2 associates, all 3 locked in a rapid-fire discussion about stock positions and market volatility. He was taller than she'd pictured, an easy 6'2", dressed in a charcoal suit that was clearly custom-made, his dark hair threaded with silver and impeccably styled. It was the kind of face that, while handsome in a photograph, was devastating in motion, a striking collection of sharp angles and raw intensity. His eyes slid right past her without a flicker of recognition as the 2 men accompanying him broke away toward their own offices. Hillary vanished behind his office door, and not 30 seconds later, a sharp buzz came from the intercom on her desk. I need the Henderson acquisition files, the revised contract from the legal department, and whoever put a lunch meeting on my calendar for today needs to remove it. I don't take lunch meetings. Liliana calmly pressed the talk button. Good morning, Mr. Smith. You'll find the Henderson files already on your desk to the left. Legal forwarded the contract over an hour ago. It's waiting in your inbox, marked as high priority. And as for the lunch, you scheduled that yourself 2 weeks ago with Senator Brune. The topic is the infrastructure bill. Should I go ahead and cancel it for you? A beat of pure silence hung in the air. Then a clipped, no thank you. She allowed herself a small, triumphant smile. One small victory. By the end of her first week, Liliana had completely overhauled his arcane filing system, untangled 3 scheduling conflicts his previous assistant had overlooked, and single-handedly averted a catering disaster for a board dinner by personally driving to a local cafe and charming the manager into a last-minute order. Hillary had offered little more than curt directives and the rare fine or good, yet on 2 separate occasions, she'd looked up to find him observing her, his expression utterly inscrutable. It was Friday night, creeping up on 8 o'clock, and the rest of the office had been a ghost town for hours. Liliana was just finalizing some expense reports when Hillary stepped out of his office, his suit jacket gone, his tie loosened, and the sleeves of his shirt rolled to his forearms. She'd never seen him look anything less than perfectly composed. The sight, she realized with a jolt, was dangerously attractive. "You're still working," he stated, the words a flat observation rather than a question. "Just about finished," she answered, keeping her eyes fixed on the monitor, though she could feel his proximity like a change in the room's temperature. "It's getting late." He moved to stand beside her desk, and she caught the scent of his cologne, something crisp, refined, with a hint of cedar. Liliana. Her name on his lips made her look up. He was standing so close she had to crane her neck to meet his gaze. And for the first time, she noticed the faint bruised shadows under his eyes, the sheer exhaustion etched into his features. "You don't have to prove a thing to me," he said, his voice surprisingly soft. "Jennifer spoke very highly of you. Your work has been exceptional. Go home." It was the longest string of words he'd directed at her all week, and the unexpected gentleness of his tone threw her completely. "Are you going home?" she countered. The corner of his mouth twitched the ghost of a smile. "No." She met his gaze directly. "Then with all due respect, sir, neither am I. The Wexler presentation is on Monday, and nearly half of these graphics are inaccurate. I was planning on correcting them." He just watched her for a long moment, something unreadable shifting in his eyes. It's Hillary, he finally said. Not sir. And how are the graphics inaccurate? She swiveled her monitor toward him, pointing to the projection data. This is pulling from last quarter's results, not the current quarter's. And the font, she paused, choosing her words carefully. The font, it's, she hunted for a diplomatic term, not exactly optimized for readability on modern screens. A flicker of amusement crossed his face. You're saying my presentations have bad fonts. I'm saying whoever created this template back in 2008 couldn't have predicted how it would look on today's high-resolution displays. This time he actually smiled. Just a hint of it, but it was there. Fix it, he said. I'll get us some dinner. You like Thai? She blinked, surprised. Yes. Good, there's a spot on Mass Avenue that delivers. Spring rolls, please. He took out his phone, tapping out an order from memory before doing something that truly shocked her. He pulled an empty chair from an adjacent cubicle and sat down right next to her. All right, he said, walk me through your ideas. For the next 2 hours, they worked shoulder to shoulder, and Liliana fought to ignore the intoxicating scent of his cologne and the low-focused timbre of his voice. She tried not to watch the deft, elegant way his hands moved as he broke down intricate financial models with absolute certainty. His brilliance was a given, but what surprised her was his patience. He listened intently to every one of her suggestions, genuinely considered them adopted about half, and debated the others with a startlingly good-natured spirit. The Thai food arrived, and they ate right there at her desk. With takeout containers scattered between them, the conversation effortlessly shifted from quarterly reports to the city of Indianapolis. She talked about what it was like growing up here, her affection for the city, despite its imperfections, and her hopes for its future. He in turn told her about the grueling process of building Smith Holdings from nothing. He spoke of the gambles that had paid off the failures that had nearly broken him and the lessons learned along the way. So why an executive assistant? He asked, placing his chopsticks down and looking at her with an expression of pure curiosity. You have a business degree. You're obviously capable of much more. She gave a slight shrug. Well, you don't just wake up one day and launch a company when you have no capital. Besides, I was hoping to learn a thing or two from someone who... Her voice trailed off, a sudden wave of self-consciousness washing over her. Who what? It's nothing really, I wanted a real taste of the corporate world, the triumphs, the failures, before I committed to anything. His eyes locked onto hers, and in an instant, the very air between them crackled with an unspoken energy. Liliana's heart began to hammer against her ribs. Hillary shot to his feet, shattering the connection. It's getting late. I'll have Marcus see you to your car. And just like that, the spell was broken. She just nodded, her mind reeling from the abrupt shift as she collected her belongings. Liliana, he called out just as her fingers brushed against her coat. She froze and turned back. He stood like a shadow against the panoramic view of his office, the lights of the Indianapolis skyline twinkling like a sea of stars behind him. Thank you for your work tonight. Of course, was all she could muster. You have a good weekend. As she walked out, she missed the sight of him standing there motionless for a full 10 minutes, his jaw clenched as he stared into the empty space she'd just left. Autumn bled across the city, the trees lining Meridian Street, flaring into brilliant shades of gold and crimson before finally surrendering their leaves to the wind. Liliana quickly became attuned to the cadence of Hillary's world. She learned to read his rhythms, to anticipate his needs almost before he knew them himself. She cataloged the small details. He was left-handed. He had a habit of tapping his pen exactly 3 times on the desk when deep in thought. He would interrupt any meeting, no matter how important, for a call from his daughter. And there was a faint white scar on his right hand, whose story remained a mystery. But she also discovered a hidden kindness in him, one that operated in the quiet moments nobody else saw. He would discreetly arrange for employees to slip out early for a child's school play, personally pen glowing recommendations for the interns, and never forgot a single birthday. The persona he projected, the cold cutthroat tycoon, was nothing more than a carefully constructed suit of armor. She was sure of it now. Beneath it all, he was simply a man who felt things too deeply and had paid the price for it. And with that realization came another far more dangerous one. She was in deep trouble. It began with the subtle things, like the way her heart would leap into her throat whenever he spoke her name. Soon she was manufacturing reasons to work late, clinging to the hope that he might step out of his office and they could recapture the easy connection they'd shared that very first Friday. It escalated until her nights were filled with dreams of his hands, the timbre of his voice, the rare ghost of a smile on his lips. This wasn't just a crush. It was a serious, undeniable problem. The first real Fisher in his carefully crafted exterior appeared on a Wednesday in the middle of November. Liliana was meticulously reviewing his schedule when her phone buzzed with a call from an unlisted number. She nearly let it go to voicemail. "Hello, am I speaking with Liliana Fischer?" The woman's voice was like polished ice. "Yes. May I ask who's calling?" "My name is Claudette. I understand you're employed by my ex-husband." A lead weight dropped into Liliana's stomach. "Ma'am, if you're trying to reach Mr. Smith, I can put you through to him." "No, it's you I want to talk to. Tell me." "Dear, how old are you?" The condescension in her tone was as thick and sweet as poison. Liliana fought to keep her own voice steady. "I fail to see how that's any of your business, ma'am. I'm not sure how that it's relevant. You sound so young, so let me offer you a piece of advice from one woman to another. Hillary has a talent for making people feel like they're the center of the universe. He's especially gifted with young, pretty things like you. But don't be fooled. He is not a good man. Whatever image he's sold you, the truth is he's a cold, selfish creature who leaves a trail of destruction in his wake. If you don't believe me, just ask his daughter. I really think you should take this up with Mr. Smith directly." "Oh, I plan to. I just felt a certain obligation to let you know precisely what kind of mess you've stepped into. Because when he's done with you, and believe me, he will be, don't ever say no when tried to warn you." The line went dead. Liliana just sat there trembling with a raw fury and something else, an emotion she couldn't quite identify. Just then, Hillary's door swung open. "Liliana, any word back from Senator Brune's office regarding—" He cut himself off the moment he saw her face. "What's wrong?" "Nothing," she blurted out far too fast. In 3 long strides, he was standing over her desk. "That's not nothing. You're clearly upset. It's a personal matter. I shouldn't have— I'm not moving from my spot until you tell me what happened." His voice was low, almost a whisper, but it was laced with unyielding steel. She wavered for a moment, then finally confessed. "Your ex-wife, she called me." His entire body went ramrod straight. "What did she say to you?" "It doesn't matter, Liliana." He knelt down beside her chair, bringing himself to her level. The unexpected tenderness of the action made her throat ache. "What did she tell you? That you're a monster? That you're just gonna hurt me? That I need to—" She couldn't finish. His jaw was a knot of tension. "I am so sorry. She had absolutely no right to involve you in this. I will take care of it. Is any of it true?" The question tumbled out of her before she could catch it. "Are you—" She struggled to find the right words. "I mean, is this a habit of yours, with your assistants?" The look on his face was as if she'd slapped him. "Absolutely not." He dragged a hand through his hair, his frustration palpable. "In 20 years, I've had exactly 4 executive assistants. One of them is now my chief financial officer. One is retired, another relocated to Boston for her husband's career, and then there's you. There is no pattern of—" He trailed off, a sudden understanding dawning in his eyes. Why would you even think that he shot to his feet, creating a sudden chasm between them? "She's playing games, Liliana. Trying to poison your mind. Don't let her win." "But why does she despise you so much?" The question lingered in the heavy silence. Hillary paced to the window, his hands shoved deep in his pockets, his shoulders rigid with tension. "Because I fell out of love with her," he said at last, his back still to her. "Or maybe," he added quietly, "it's because I never loved her at all. Not in the way she needed. Our marriage was—" He paused, grappling for the right word. "A merger. A strategic alliance between 2 powerful families. It had good optics, mutual benefits. We were friends, or so I believed. Then Sloane was born, and for a time that seemed to be enough to hold it all together. But Claudette craved something I was incapable of giving. She wanted passion, romance, the all-consuming storybook kind of love." He finally turned his gaze, finding hers across the room. "I'm just not wired that way." And she grew to resent it, to resent me. By the end, we were little more than strangers, connected only by our daughter and our divorce attorneys. Liliana's heart ached for him. "But you love Sloane more than anything in this world. That just means you were made for it. You just haven't met the one who deserves it." The words tumbled out, a raw truth she couldn't snatch back. For a split second, Hillary's mask fell away, and she saw something naked and vulnerable in his eyes. The space separating them felt charged electric. "Liliana," he breathed, and her name was a different thing on his tongue. Huskier. "You need to go. It's only 2 o'clock in the afternoon." "I know. Leave. Take the rest of the day." He started to say something else. I need, then bit it back, his jaw tight. Just go. Stung and bewildered, she grabbed her purse. She never saw the way his fingers dug into the mahogany of his desk as the door clicked shut, his knuckles turning white as he dragged in a ragged breath. That night at 11, her phone vibrated on the nightstand. A text from a number she didn't recognize. This is Hillary. I owe you an apology for today. My behavior was out of line. It also occurred to me that I only have your office extension, which feels like an oversight. If you're not okay with me having this number, I will delete it and never use it again. I can forget it. She stared at the screen, her mind racing. He must have pulled her file from human resources. There was something strangely honorable about him asking for permission after he'd already crossed the line. She saved his name to her contacts. It's fine, she typed. Are you all right? The three dots materialized, vanished, then appeared once more. No, but that isn't a problem for you to solve. What if I want to make it my problem? The silence that followed stretched for an eternity. You shouldn't. Good thing I've never been very good at doing what I should, Liliana. Hillary, this is a terrible idea. Whatever this is. Her heart was a frantic drum against her ribs. I'm not sure what you're referring to. Yes, you are. The phone felt heavy in her hand, her blood roaring in her ears. He was right. She knew precisely what he was referring to. It was this unbearable current that had simmered between them for weeks. The way they orbited each other like charged particles, both terrified of the cataclysm if they ever collided. So what do we do about it, she typed. We don't. We act as if it doesn't exist. We are colleagues. We respect the boundary. We pretend this feeling isn't real. The typing bubble appeared and vanished 3 times. Yes, that is what we do. She should have felt relief. But the word left her feeling utterly hollow. Okay, good night, Hillary. Good night. She knew she wouldn't sleep. She suspected he wouldn't either. The next 2 weeks were a special kind of hell. A carefully constructed stage play of professional courtesy. He no longer worked late. She never lingered. The text stopped, but the silence only made the tension coil into an unbearable knot. They were a wire stretched to its breaking point. And then Sloan walked in. It was a Thursday, the office strangely silent, with everyone else gone to an off-site conference. Liliana was juggling calls when the elevator doors hissed open, revealing a girl who was all sharp angles and long limbs. She had Hillary's dark hair and piercing cheekbones and was swallowed by a leather jacket and artfully ripped jeans. You're Liliana, the girl stated, not asked, as she flopped into the chair opposite the desk. I'm Sloan. Is my dad here? He's in a meeting across town. He should be back in an hour. Is he expecting you? Not a chance. I prefer an ambush. Sloane's eyes, a mirror of her father's, studied her with an unnerving intensity. You're younger than his last one. A wicked grin spread across her face. So what's the situation between you and my father? Heat rushed to Liliana's face. There is no situation. I'm his executive assistant. Uh-huh. And I'm the Princess of Genovia. Pleasure to make your acquaintance. Sloane rolled her eyes. Relax. I'm kidding, mostly, but for real, he talks about you constantly. It's always Liliana handled it. Liliana figured it out. Liliana proposed this new strategy. It's kind of pathetic, actually. She waved a dismissive hand. He just appreciates efficiency. Sure, that's it. And I suppose that's why he's always smiling down at his phone these days. Must be some fascinating work emails. Liliana's heart stuttered. He doesn't. Oh, but he does. Look, Sloane said, her voice dropping. I'm going to be real with you because you seem cool. My dad is walled off completely. He has been since my mother, maybe even before. She really shattered him. But recently he's lighter, and you're the only thing that's changed. So whatever magic you're working, keep it up. I'm not doing anything, if you say so. Before Liliana could form a reply, the elevator chimed. The doors slid apart. Hillary stepped out. His gaze landed on his daughter, and his entire world seemed to shift on its axis. The guarded, formidable businessman melted away, replaced by someone open, warm, and unguarded. Sloane, sweetheart, what on earth are you doing here? Sloane practically launched herself at him. He caught her in a fierce hug, burying his face in her hair, and a sharp, painful ache bloomed deep in Liliana's chest. This was him, the man without the armor, unafraid. This is what it looked like when he loved someone. Mom's on a rampage about college essays. Sloane mumbled into his shoulder. I had to escape. Can I stay with you this weekend? Always, you never have to ask. He drew back his hands, framing her face. Are you okay? I am now. Sloane's gaze flicked over to Liliana, a knowing smirk touching her lips. Your assistant is beautiful. You forgot to mention that part. The warmth on Hillary's face vanished. Sloane, what I'm just making an observation. Liliana stood abruptly. I'll give you two some privacy. Stay, Hillary commanded, the words sharper than he intended. He cleared his throat. You don't need to leave. Sloane, this is Liliana Fischer. Liliana, this is my daughter who was apparently born without a filter. It's a genetic condition, Sloane said brightly, extending her hand. It's a pleasure to officially meet you. Liliana shook it, captivated by the girl's chaotic charm. You too. All right, Liliana, Sloane said, settling back in her chair, clearly digging in. Spill it. How do you possibly survive my father's certifiable control issues? I make very detailed, color-coded spreadsheets. Sloane let out a bark of laughter, and from across the room, Liliana saw the corner of Hillary's mouth twitch into a reluctant smile. I'm not a control freak, he stated as both women stared at him. After a deep sigh, he clarified, I just have a deep appreciation for order. You arrange your socks by color, Sloane countered. That's for efficiency. You map out your meals 3 weeks ahead of time. That's called being practical. Liliana fought to hide a smile. Watching them, feeling the easy warmth and the playful teasing that flowed between them, felt like something was unlocking deep in her soul. She understood then what he guarded so ferociously. This bond, this love, all the rest of it, the cold exterior, the obsession with control, it was all a fortress built to protect this. In that moment, she truly saw him, and that clarity only made her fall for him faster. The three of them ordered a pizza and settled in for the evening in Hillary's office, with Sloane captivating them with stories about her. Absolute nightmare of a rival on the debate team. Her girlfriend's spectacularly failed attempt at crafting a vegan lasagna and her mother's ever-escalating wild demands. Hillary just listened, asking questions here and there, offering advice only when she asked for it, and mostly just gave his daughter the gift of feeling completely heard. At 9, Sloane let out a huge yawn. I'm about to pass out. So is it your couch tonight, or are we actually going home? Home, Hillary answered. I just need to wrap up a couple of things. Give me 20 minutes and we can leave. Sloane's eyes darted between the two of them, a knowing look dancing in her expression. Take all the time you need. I'll be down in the lobby. It was really nice meeting you, Liliana, and for the record, I approve. Approve of what? Hillary asked, his voice sharp. Of her excellent work, Dad. Calm down. Sloane shot Liliana a quick wink before disappearing out the door. A heavy silence descended. Hillary rubbed his hand over his face. I need to apologize for my daughter. Oh no, I like her. She's incredible. Of course you'd have to say that. Honestly, Hillary, I adore the bond you two have. It's genuinely beautiful to witness. He finally looked at Liliana, and the sheer force of his attention made her breath catch in her throat. What did she say to you before I walked in? She seems to think you're happier these days. I am. The words seemed to take him by surprise. I don't know why. You're a terrible liar, Liliana thought. You know exactly why. But she kept the words to herself. Instead, she said, you should go. She's waiting for you. I know. Yet he didn't budge. Hillary, just go, she said, her voice softening. Don't say whatever it is you're about to say. Not now. He swallowed hard, nodded once, then collected his coat and briefcase, but paused in the doorway. For what it's worth, he said, not turning to face her. I am not well equipped for this feeling. The sentence hung in the air. Good night. And then he was gone. Liliana stood alone in his now empty office, enveloped by the lingering scent of his cologne, pressing a hand against her chest where her heart threatened to beat its way out. December blew in with a blanket of snow and a calendar full of holiday work parties. The firm's yearly black tie gala was set for the 15th, held at the Indianapolis Museum of Art. Jennifer brought it up nonchalantly one Monday morning. Attendance is mandatory, she told Liliana. All the senior staff and their assistants, an open bar, surprisingly good food, and a lot of forced conversation. Wear something amazing. Liliana's stomach dropped. She owned nothing that could be described as gala-appropriate. Her most formal outfit was a simple knee-length black dress from her cousin's wedding. Jennifer, sensing her rising panic, took her on a shopping mission, insisting she could expense half the cost as a professional development purchase. They discovered the perfect dress in a little boutique in Broad Ripple. It was a swirl of midnight blue silk that moved like water, exquisitely elegant and simple, with a back that plunged far lower than anything Liliana had ever dared to wear. Jennifer whistled. He is going to absolutely lose his mind. That's not why I'm getting it. Sure it isn't, sweetie. You keep telling yourself that. The night of the gala, Liliana came dangerously close to calling in sick. But she'd never been a coward, so she slipped on the blue silk dress, swept her hair into an elegant twist, applied far more makeup than usual, and hailed a car. The museum was completely transformed, filled with soft glowing lights and wintry floral arrangements, while a string quartet played softly near the grand entrance. Liliana took a glass of champagne from a passing server and was immediately overwhelmed by the feeling that she did not belong. Everyone looked so polished, so established, so utterly at ease in this stratosphere of wealth and power. She was desperately scanning the crowd for a familiar face when she felt it, that electric hum in the air that always signaled he was near. She turned. Hillary was standing across the hall, poured into a tuxedo that fit him like a second skin, speaking with a silver-haired man she recognized as the mayor. But his attention wasn't on the mayor. His eyes were locked on her, and the look on his face was so intense it stole the air right out of her lungs. He excused himself and began moving toward her, crossing the vast room with an unhurried, deliberate pace. Liliana felt every single person in the room track his path. When he finally stood before her, he didn't say a word at first. He just looked at her, his gaze so thorough it felt like he was memorizing the very essence of her. "You look," he began, but his jaw tightened and he trailed off. "That dress. You must know it's—" "What?" she managed to ask when he didn't finish. His voice dropped to a low, rough murmur that was meant for her ears alone. "Dangerous." A wave of heat rushed through her. "It's just a dress." "Oh, it's more than a dress." His gaze traveled down its neckline, tracing the way the silk clung to her curves, and when his eyes met hers again, she saw a raw, barely restrained hunger in them. "Dance with me," he said. It wasn't a request. It was a beautiful, unconditional surrender. She let him guide her toward the dance floor where couples were already swaying to a slow classical piece. His hands came to rest on the small of her back, finding the bare skin just where the fabric ended. She felt him draw in a sharp, sudden breath. "This dress," he whispered, pulling her impossibly closer, "is going to be the death of me." That would be terribly inconvenient. A tremor ran through her as his thumb ghosted in slow circles over her spine. Their bodies swayed together, blurring the line of professionalism until it vanished completely. Liliana surrendered to the truth of it, this raw, aching need, this undeniable pull. Between two souls fighting a gravity they were destined to lose. His voice was a ghost of a whisper almost lost in the music. "You're all I can think about." He confessed, "I've fought it. Believe me, I've fought it. But then I walk into the office each morning and there you are, smiling so impossibly capable, so brilliant, it hurts. And He broke off, the war raging in his eyes. "This is wrong, I know it. You're my employee. You're 24. I'm not blind to the facts. I'm 46. I'm well aware of the math." His grip on her waist grew possessive. "We can't do this. I'm serious, Liliana." "I know you are," she met his gaze. "Then why are you looking at me that way?" "What way?" His eyes fell to her lips, a silent confession. "Like you're hoping I'll give up trying to be noble." A sharp breath caught in her throat. "Maybe I am." A low, tormented sound escaped him, a mix of agony and desire. "You have no idea what you're asking for." "Then explain it to me." The dance had stopped for them. They stood frozen in the eye of the storm as the world spun on around them, oblivious. "If we start this," Hillary's voice was strained, barely holding on, "if I give in and let myself have you, there will be no turning back. I won't be the kind, considerate man you deserve. There will be nothing gentle about it. I will demand all of you. I will utterly consume you, and I'll make damn sure no other man ever measures up. I'm selfish and desperate enough to claim you in every way imaginable." His words sank into her very marrow, hot and perilous. "And what if I want to be ruined?" He flinched, shutting his eyes as if her words were a physical blow. "Don't say that." "Why, because the little control I have left is snapping." His eyes flew open, and the sheer unfiltered hunger in them suffocated the air from her lungs. "And you're the one unraveling it thread by thread." A soft challenge. "Hillary, take me home." Every muscle in his body went taut. "You don't know what you're saying." "I know exactly what I'm saying. Take me home. Your place, my place. It doesn't matter." He just stared, the battle raging behind his eyes. Finally, his voice emerged rough and broken. "Get your coat." Her heart hammered against her ribs. "What?" "Get your coat." He repeated the words, already creating distance between them, his hand dropping from her waist as if her skin had scorched him. I am taking you home, to your apartment, alone, because if I stay here one more second, I am going to do something unforgivable, and this entire room is already watching my every move. A war of disappointment and relief raged inside her. Liliana, please, he begged, and the raw desperation in his voice froze her in place. Just please, let me be the better man just for tonight, while I still have the strength. Every instinct told her to fight to press the advantage, but the agonizing conflict etched on his face made her surrender. Okay. A heavy silence fell as they retrieved their coats. He wouldn't hear of her taking a cab, overriding her protests. The ride was suffocating thick with everything left unsaid. The city lights streaked past the window in a meaningless blur. Her entire awareness was focused on him, the white-knuckle grip he had on the steering wheel, the furious pulse hammering in his jaw. He pulled to the curb in front of her building, shifting the car into park, but leaving the engine humming. I'll wait until I see you're safely inside. Liliana released her seatbelt and turned to him. Are we just going to pretend that didn't happen? We can't, he stated, his gaze fixed on the road ahead. Because if I let myself talk about it, if I let myself think about it for even a second, I'll turn this car off and follow you upstairs. And we both know where that leads. Would that really be so awful? His head finally turned, and the naked yearning etched into his features was a physical ache. Yes, he breathed, because you deserve a clean slate of future. Not some guy with a vindictive ex-wife who'd chew you up for fun and a life so tangled you'd suffocate. You deserve simple and easy. You deserve uncomplicated. What if simple is the last thing I want? As if it had a will of its own, his hand lifted, cupping her cheek with a gentleness that shattered her. But what if that's all I have to offer? What? She instinctively leaned into his warmth. You're already giving me everything. His thumb brushed across her cheekbone as he studied her, his gaze treating her like she was infinitely precious, terrifyingly fragile. I haven't felt fear in 20 years, he admitted, his voice low. But you, Liliana, you terrify me. Why? Well, because you make me want things I buried a long, long time ago. And I honestly don't know if I have the strength to survive it when you finally walk away, when you realize what a colossal mistake you've made. It's not a mistake. You can't be sure of that. Neither can you. They remained frozen in that moment, his hand on her cheek, hers covering his, the engine a low thrum beneath them, both too scared to break the spell. I should go, Liliana whispered, making no move to leave. Yes, he agreed, his hand remaining on her skin. For a full 30 seconds, the world stood still. Then, with a monumental effort that seemed to cost him everything, he let his hand fall. Good night, Liliana. She picked up her purse, pushed the door open, but hesitated. Just so you know, she said, looking back, I think you're wrong about every single thing. As she walked toward the entrance, she could feel his gaze burning into her back. At the door, she risked one last glance over her shoulder. He hadn't moved. His hands were still strangling the steering wheel, as if it were the only anchor keeping him from following her. She slipped inside. A full 5 minutes passed before the sound of his car finally faded down the street. The week before Christmas, a file landed on Liliana's desk with a thud. It was Jennifer. Chicago conference, 20th through the 22nd, Jennifer announced. Hillary's delivering the keynote and meeting with the investors. It's usually my trip, but my daughter is flying in from Seattle. Think you can cover for me? Liliana's heart leaped into her throat. Absolutely. Book them into separate suites, but make sure they're on the same floor. He's not to miss a meal, and he needs a minimum of 4 hours of sleep. He becomes a monster during these negotiations. I understand. Jennifer paused, studying her for a moment too long. What should she be careful of? You already know. The 20th dawned crisp and painfully bright. A private town car whisked them to a secluded airport terminal, onto a charter jet bound for O'Hare, and then into another black car that delivered them to the Peninsula Hotel. Liliana was no stranger to business travel, but this was on another level entirely. She'd never stayed anywhere so opulent that the cathedral-like lobby itself felt like a sacred space demanding silence. Their suites faced each other from across a wide carpeted hall, both offering sweeping views of the lake and bathrooms carved from marble. An hour after they'd settled in, Hillary's knock echoed on her door. Dinner with the board is at 7, he announced, his body already crowding the doorway, his tie already loosened from his neck. Dress code is business casual. He paused, his gaze sweeping over her arm. And Liliana, yes, his eyes drank her in. Do me a favor and try not to be as breathtaking as you were at the gala. I have to maintain some semblance of focus tomorrow. He was gone before a reply could form on her lips, leaving her frozen in place, her heart hammering against her ribs as she wondered how she would possibly survive the next 2 days. Dinner was held at some Michelin-starred establishment, where the artfully arranged portions were smaller than the palm of her hand. She was seated next to Hillary, every nerve ending, screamingly aware of each time his arm accidentally grazed hers, each time his fingers drifted near her own on the polished table. In this setting, he was a force of nature, commanding, sharp, utterly brilliant, and just witnessing him in his element was a potent, dizzying drug. Later, as they walked back toward the hotel through the glittering tapestry of Chicago in December, he turned to her. Feel like a walk. My mind is still racing. So they meandered down Michigan Avenue, past the dazzling holiday window displays, and the last of the late-night shoppers in a way that felt terrifyingly close to a real date. Hillary gestured to skyscrapers he admired, recounting tales of fortunes made and empires lost within this very city. And Liliana found herself memorizing the deep timbre of his voice, the way his breath plumed in the frigid air. They came to a stop before the colossal Christmas tree in Millennium Park, its lights shimmering on the surface of the bean, and it was there that Hillary finally faced her. "Can I ask you a question?" "Of course. Why me?" The question made her blink. "What do you mean you could have any job anywhere, work for anyone you wanted? So why Smith Holdings? Why are you still there?" He hesitated. "So close to me when you have to know this." He gestured vaguely at the space between them. "Whatever this thing is between us, it's complicated on a good day and a complete catastrophe on a bad one." Liliana thought about lying, about giving the safe professional answer. But here in Chicago, miles away from the office and its unspoken rules, she was just so tired of pretending. "You're an exceptional businessman. What person wouldn't want to be a part of your company?" He just stared, his carefully constructed mask seeming to crack right before her eyes. "Liliana." "Yes," she breathed out the answer to a question he hadn't even asked. He moved a fraction closer, so near she could see herself reflected in the darkness of his pupils. "Can I be brutally honest with you about something? I'm listening. I am in love with you." The words didn't fall. They landed solid and permanent things in the space between them. "I have been fighting this for months, telling myself every excuse in the book, that it was unprofessional, that it was impossible. But the simple truth is that I am completely and terrifyingly in love with you, and I haven't the slightest clue what on earth I'm supposed to do about it." The entire world seemed to shrink to the lines of his face, his confession still ringing in the air. "Hillary, you don't need to say anything. I had to tell you before I completely lost my courage." Before she could talk herself out of it, she was on her toes, her hands fisted in the lapels of his coat, and she was kissing him with the force of every single thing she had been suppressing for months. For a barest fraction of a second, he went rigid with shock, and then a sound that was half groan, half total surrender, tore from his throat as he kissed her back. His hands surged up to cup her face, tilting her head to the angle he craved, and he kissed her like a man who had been starved for a lifetime like she was, the very air he needed to stop from drowning. When they finally tore away from each other, both of them gasping for breath, he rested his forehead against hers. "We can't," he began. "If the next words out of your mouth are 'do this,' I swear I will scream." A ragged, breathless laugh escaped him. "I was going to say we can't be doing this out in the open where the whole world can see us." "Oh," his thumb stroked her bottom lip, his eyes turning impossibly dark. "My sweet, or yours?" Her stomach did a violent flip. "Yours is probably more impressive." "I don't give a damn about impressive. All I care about is getting you into a bed and finally showing you exactly how long I've been wanting this." A searing heat coiled low in her abdomen. "Then yours." Their walk back to the hotel was anything but casual, now a silent, high-speed retreat. The elevator ride up was a study in charged stillness, and the instant his hotel room door clicked shut behind them, he had her slammed back against it, his mouth crashing down on hers, his hands tangling in her hair, as he kissed her slowly, thoroughly, possessively. His palms slid down the curve of her waist, mapping her body, and a low groan rumbled in his chest when she instinctively arched against him. "You have no earthly idea how many times I have played this moment out in my head," he growled, his lips trailing fire down her neck. "How many sleepless nights I've spent just thinking about putting my hands on you, tasting you, hearing you scream my name." A tremor racked her body. "Show me." He backed her toward the massive bed, their bodies never breaking contact, and lowered her onto the mattress with a reverence that was a stark contrast to the raw hunger burning in his eyes. He tore off his jacket and yanked his tie loose, as Liliana watched utterly captivated. "You're staring," he said, the corner of his mouth ticking upward. "You're something worth staring at." He moved over her, bracketing her body with his arms, and the sheer weight and heat of him was intoxicating. "I need you to understand something," he murmured, his voice low and deadly serious. "This is not a casual thing for me. This is not just about tonight. If we do this, if I close this door on the world, you become mine, completely, and I do not share." Any other man's possessiveness would have grated on her, but from him it was a bolt of lightning straight down her spine. His kiss was a bruising, demanding claim, his hands charting the map of her body as if to memorize it for all time. When the straps of her dress slid from her shoulders, leaving her completely exposed to his gaze, he simply stopped and stared. "Perfect." He breathed the word, a raw sound of pure reverence. "You are utterly perfect." He began a slow, worshipful path of kisses down her body, and by the time he settled between her thighs, a sharp, involuntary gasp tore from her throat. "Hillary," he commanded, his voice a low, rough growl. "Say my name again, just like that. I want to hear it as I completely undo you." He brought her to that edge twice before she was clawing at him, pulling him up with a desperate need to feel all of him inside her. He ripped away the last of his clothes, and she stole a second to drink in the sight of his lean, powerful frame before he covered her again. "This is your last chance," he whispered, even as the hard press of his body betrayed his own desperate need for this. "We can stop this right now." "If you stop now," she threatened, "I will never, ever forgive you." A brilliant, genuine smile broke across his face, utterly transforming him. "In that case, hold on tight." He pushed into her with a deliberate, maddening slowness, the intimacy of the act stealing the air from her lungs. The way he locked eyes with her, murmuring words of praise and promises against her skin, created an ache so deep in her chest it was almost pain. When he had filled her completely, he held himself perfectly still. "You okay?" he asked, and she adored him for his concern. More than okay. He started a slow, deliberate rhythm that built with perfect precision, and Liliana wrapped every part of herself around him, holding on just like he told her to. The tension coiled within her, tighter and tighter, until she finally shattered. His name was a prayer ripped from her lips, and he followed only moments later, burying his face in her neck as her name broke from him like a long-held confession. Later, their limbs tangled together in the sheets. He traced idle patterns on her bare shoulder. "I wasn't lying earlier," he murmured into the quiet. "I love you." Liliana turned to face him fully, her breath catching at the raw vulnerability in his eyes. "I love you too. I have for a while now." He pressed a soft, reverent kiss to her forehead. "What are we going to do?" "We'll figure it out. Together. It's going to get complicated. I know. Claudette will turn our lives into a living hell. Let her try." He smiled, the expression hidden in her hair. "You're fearless. Only when it comes to you." They fell asleep like that, tangled in each other's arms. And for the first time in years, Hillary slept the entire night through undisturbed by nightmares, held securely by someone who loved him despite every broken piece of him. The morning after was supposed to be perfect. Liliana awoke swathed in Egyptian cotton sheets that probably cost more than her entire month's rent. Hillary's arm was a heavy, possessive weight across her waist, and soft winter sunlight streamed through the panoramic floor-to-ceiling windows. She shifted in his embrace, only to find him already awake, watching her with an expression she found utterly impossible to read. "Hi," she whispered, feeling suddenly shy under his intense gaze. He gently brushed a strand of hair from her face, his thumb tracing the line of her cheekbone. "Morning? Any regrets?" Something unreadable flickered deep in his eyes there and gone in a flash. "No, not a single one. You—" He kissed her, then slow and thorough, and she felt him grow hard against her hip. "We have 2 hours before the keynote," he murmured against her mouth. "I can think of several ways to spend them." She could too, but the sharp vibration of his phone on the nightstand shattered the moment completely. He glanced at the screen, his jaw tightening instantly. "It's my lawyer." "You should take it," she said, sliding out of the warm bed and wrapping herself in the ridiculously plush, complimentary robe. "I'll order breakfast." She left him to the call, trying her best not to eavesdrop, as his voice shifted into that clipped, brutally controlled tone he always used for business. 20 minutes later, he emerged from the bedroom, fully dressed, his expression looking as if it were carved from stone. "Is everything okay?" she asked cautiously. "Fine, we should get ready. We have a long day ahead." The warmth from their morning had completely vanished. Through breakfast, he was polite. During the keynote, he was professional. At the investor meetings, he was attentive, but emotionally a million miles away. By the time they boarded the private jet home that evening, Liliana's stomach was a tangled mess of anxiety. Hillary, did I do something wrong? He didn't even look up from his laptop. Of course not. Then why would you think that? Because you've barely looked at me since that phone call this morning. I'm working. Look at me, she demanded, her voice low. This time he did look up, his expression a perfect unreadable mask. We will talk when we are back in Indianapolis, not here. The flight felt like an eternity. The car ride from the airport was somehow even worse. When he finally pulled up to her apartment building, she waited, expecting him to say something, anything, to break the silence. Instead, all he offered was, get some rest. See you Monday. She stared at him, the hurt blooming sharp and painful in her chest. That's it. No, seriously, that's it? We spend the most incredible night of my life together. You tell me that you love me, and now you're dropping me off, like I'm just a coworker. You gave a lift home too. His hands tightened on the steering wheel until his knuckles were white. I am trying to do the right thing, Liliana. And what is that exactly? Give us both the space to think clearly. Without? He stopped himself. Without what? Without me touching you and forgetting all the very good, very logical reasons why this is so damn complicated. Her anger began to soften. What if I don't want space? That's precisely why I'm insisting on it. He finally met her eyes again, and the raw conflict she saw there was agonizing to witness. Please, just give me the weekend. I need to think. Her pride stinging, she grabbed her bag from the passenger seat. Fine, think all you want. She slammed the door, without waiting for a reply, walked into her building, and didn't let the first tear fall until she heard the sound of his car speeding away. Monday morning arrived cold and bleak. Liliana stepped into the office at 7:15, steeling herself for what was to come, model. He walked in at 8 on the dot, giving her a curt nod as he passed by, and vanished into his office. No trace of a smile, no sign of warmth. Nothing. By Tuesday, a scream was building in her throat. His politeness was a weapon, his professionalism a shield. He was a fortress. The charged glances were gone, the stolen moments erased. Every conversation was clipped, clinical, and utterly devoid of life. It was as if Chicago had been a dream. On Wednesday, she tried to corner him between meetings. He brushed her off with a phantom phone call. Thursday, she brought him his coffee, made just right. He muttered his thanks to his computer screen. By Friday evening, in the silence of the empty office, she had hit her limit. She strode into his office, no knock, and pulled the door shut behind her. We're going to talk about what happened. Hillary's eyes never left the monitor. There's nothing to discuss. The hell there isn't. Liliana, no. You don't get to just erase me. Not after that. He finally met her gaze, his expression a carefully constructed mask of neutrality that was a pain to look at. It was a lapse in judgment. We were swept up in the moment. It will not happen again. The words struck her like a physical blow. A lapse in judgment. Yes, I'm your boss. You are 24 years old. It was wildly inappropriate, and I apologize for my part in it. A tidal wave of fury crashed through her. Don't you dare reduce what happened between us to inappropriate. You felt it just as much as I did. I know you did. He shot to his feet, tension radiating from every inch of his frame. What I feel is completely irrelevant. This puts you in a compromising position. It puts my daughter in jeopardy. It jeopardizes everything I have spent my life building. So this is your solution. You just flip a switch and turn it off. His jaw hardened. Yes. My God, you really are as cold-blooded as they say. She saw it then, a flicker of pain in his eyes there and gone in an instant. Good. She wanted him to feel a fraction of the agony twisting inside her. She turned for the door, her hand on the knob. For what it's worth, she said, not turning back. You're a coward. She left, closing the door with a quiet, deliberate click that felt more final than a slam ever could. She grabbed her coat and her purse, holding herself together until the elevator doors slid shut. Only then did the tears finally fall. Hillary stood alone in the suffocating silence of his office, his knuckles white where he gripped the desk, his breathing ragged. Every instinct screamed at him to chase after her, to drag her back and explain that this cruelty was for her own protection. But his feet were rooted to the floor. This was the right thing to do. It was necessary. His phone vibrated on the desk. Claudette, of course. He answered, his voice a flat monotone. What do you want, Claudette? Darling, her voice was honey-laced with arsenic. I believe it's time we discuss the custody arrangement. I've been hearing some rather concerning things about your judgment lately. Ice flowed through his veins. What are you talking about? Oh, just whispers. But you know how people love to gossip. A man of your stature with such a pretty young employee, it invites questions of propriety. It would be such a shame if those kinds of rumors were to affect our daughter's stability. The threat was unmistakable. Stay away from my people, Claudette. I'm only looking out for Sloane's best interest, darling. Like any good mother would. Think about it. Think very carefully about your next move. The line went dead. Hillary stared at the phone, and then with a guttural roar of pure frustration, he swept the entire contents of his desk onto the floor. Papers fluttered to the ground, his coffee mug shattered against the wall, but the inferno raging inside him was not quenched. He had done what he had to do. He had pushed her away to save her. So why did it feel like he'd just set fire to the only good thing in his world? That night, alone in the sterile expanse of his penthouse, Hillary poured 3 fingers of bourbon that he had no intention of drinking. He stood before the vast windows, watching the city lights blur as the ice melted in his glass, trying to force himself to believe this was for the best. He was shielding her from the wreckage of his life, the vindictive ex-wife, the relentless public eye, and the inevitable heartbreak she'd face when she realized he was too shattered to ever give her what she deserved. But every cell in his body was howling, screaming for him to go to her, to beg for her forgiveness, to confess the terrifying truth that he was falling in love with her and didn't know how to do it without destroying her completely. He looked from the untouched bourbon to his phone. He picked it up, set it down, snatched it up again. At 1:45 in the morning, he surrendered. He grabbed his coat and keys and drove into a torrential rain that seemed to be weeping with him. The lights were out in Liliana's building when he pulled up. He sat in the car for a full 10 minutes, a war raging in his head, before he finally got out. By the time he reached her door, he was soaked to the skin. He knocked before courage could desert him. The door opened to reveal her swimming in an oversized t-shirt, her eyes puffy and red, her face a canvas of pure shock. "Hillary, what are you?" It wasn't a mistake. The words tore from him raw and desperate. She just stared at him. "Then why?" "Because I am terrified. Because my ex-wife will use you as a weapon against me. Because you deserve someone whole, not someone broken into a million pieces like me. Because I'm falling in love with you, and I have no idea how to do that without ruining your life." Her composure crumbled. She stepped back, opening the door wider. "Come inside. You're completely soaked." He walked past her, dripping onto her clean hardwood floors, feeling like a fool and not caring in the slightest. She pulled a towel from a closet and handed it to him. He took it, but let it hang uselessly from his hand. He just stood there, his eyes locked on hers. "I tried to stay away," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "I only lasted 3 days. That's how pathetic I am when it comes to you." "You're not pathetic." "With you, I am," he said, finally making an absent-minded attempt to towel dry his hair. "I'm completely powerless, utterly defenseless. The moment you were gone, Claudette was on the phone. Somehow she knows about us. I have no idea how. And she's threatening to make it the centerpiece of a custody hearing. She promised to ruin your reputation, to make your life an absolute misery." His voice fractured. "I can't let that happen. I refuse to be the anchor that drags you down." Liliana moved toward him, gently taking the towel from his grasp and setting it down. "That's a risk I get to decide on, not you. You have no idea what she's willing to do. Then make me understand. Quit trying to shield me from everything and just tell me." So he opened up. They settled onto her well-loved couch, his clothes still damp from the storm, her body curled into his as he unraveled the story of his life with her. He spoke of his marriage to Claudette, explaining how it was a cold business deal from the very beginning, a merger of families rather than a meeting of hearts. He described Claudette's bitterness over him having primary custody, the way she seethed because Sloane always preferred him, her resentment that he'd rebuilt his life while she was stuck in the past, and confessed that his daughter was the only truly good thing he'd ever created, that he would set the world on fire before letting anyone take her away. "For 20 years I've lived behind fortress walls," he confessed, his voice raw with weariness, keeping everyone at arm's length, being the controlled, strategic, emotionless man they all expected me to be. "And then you came along and just..." He trailed off, fumbling for the right phrase. "What?" "You tore down every defense I had like it was paper. You made me remember how to laugh. You made me want to be a better man. You woke up feelings inside me I was convinced were dead forever." He finally turned, his eyes locking with hers. "You made me feel human again, and it terrifies me." Liliana reached for his hand, weaving their fingers together. "I'm terrified too. but I would choose being scared with you over being safe and alone any day. You feel that way now, he countered. But what about when the story breaks? When the media sinks its teeth into you, branding you a gold digger? Or worse, let them try. I know who you are. You know who I am. Nothing else matters. He drew her in, burying his face in the scent of her hair. I don't know how to be the man you deserve. Maybe all you have to be is the man who doesn't run away. They remained there wrapped up in each other on her couch until eventually they both surrendered to sleep. Hillary woke up hours later, lost for a moment, as the faint light of dawn seeped through the blinds. He found Liliana asleep on his chest, her hand clutching his shirt, as if she feared he might vanish. He placed a soft kiss on her forehead, careful not to disturb her, savoring the stillness, the quiet sense of peace, a feeling of being home that he hadn't experienced in decades. When her eyes fluttered open, a sleepy, gentle smile touched her lips. You stayed. I stayed. She stretched like a cat, the simple motion causing her shirt to ride up and expose a sliver of skin. His hands found their way to her waist as if by instinct. I need to leave, he whispered, even as his arms were pulling her across his lap. Give you time to get ready for. He trailed off, the realization dawning. It's Saturday. It is, she confirmed, her fingers tangling in his hair. No work, no obligations, just us. His hands began to explore the arch of her back, memorizing her shape. Liliana, I'm really trying to do the right thing here. I'm not interested in the right thing. She kissed him slow and full of intent. I'm interested in what's real. He groaned into her mouth. You're making this incredibly difficult. That's sort of the point. She shifted her hips against him, feeling him respond instantly, and smirked at his sharp intake of breath. Still feel like leaving? In one fluid movement, he reversed their positions, her body now pinned beneath his on the cushions. You're playing with fire, you know that. Then let me burn. His resolve crumbled into dust. He kissed her with the desperation of a drowning man finding air, his hands mapping every inch of her. The moment his hands slid under the fabric of her shirt and met warm skin, she arched against him with a soft sound. He murmured against her neck, Are you sure we shouldn't slow this down? No, Hillary, I want you, all of you, right now. Stop trying to save me from myself. He leaned back just enough to meet her gaze, and the raw adoration in his eyes was enough to make her heart ache. If we do this, he warned, his voice low, I'm not stopping, not for hours, maybe not for days. Is that a promise? He made love to her right then and there, and afterward carried her to the bedroom to do it all over again, this time slower, discovering every secret that made her cry out his name. And when she breathed the words, I love you, against his lips, he went utterly still. Say it again, he commanded, his voice shattered. I love you. You're going to be the end of me. She smiled, pulling him closer still. You wrecked me first. For the next 2 weeks, they lived on borrowed time. They kept things hidden, spending their nights tucked away in her apartment or his massive penthouse, stealing quiet mornings before the world demanded their attention. What they had was beautiful and fragile, and while they both knew it was a fantasy that couldn't last, they chose to live in it anyway. Liliana discovered Hillary's hidden playful side, a sharp wit he kept locked away at the office, and the fact that he enjoyed cooking despite being completely hopeless at it. He learned that she sang horribly off-key in the shower, possessed a secret craving for sweets, and was an intensely competitive board game player who hated to lose. Their conversations drifted from the profound to the trivial and back again. He shared the story of building his empire, from nothing, admitting that his failures had taught him far more than his triumphs ever did. She told him about a childhood without a father, about a deep-seated anger and sense of abandonment that she'd never quite managed to shake. He was gone by the time I was 12, she confessed one night, her body nestled against the warmth of Hillary's chest. Just got into his car one day and never came back. We received a postcard from California 3 months later. After that, nothing. Hillary's arms wrapped around her more tightly, a silent anchor. I'm so sorry. She whispered, for the longest time I was convinced it was my fault, that I wasn't good enough to make him want to stay. Liliana, look at me. He gently tilted her chin up, forcing her gaze to meet his. You are more than enough. You're the entire world. Your father was a fool who was never worthy of you. That was all it took for her to kiss him, and he made love to her with a tenderness so profound it made her weep, and he was there to kiss away every single tear. But their fragile, perfect world was shattered on a cold Wednesday morning in early January. Liliana was in the break room getting coffee when she caught the hushed tones of 2 junior associates. Did you read the journal this morning? Oh my God, yes. I just can't wrap my head around it. I mean, she's always seemed so sweet, but 22 years older. That's just Liliana's blood ran cold. She walked back to her desk with a terrifying calm, flipped open her laptop, and pulled up the Indianapolis Business Journal's website. The headline felt like a fist to the gut. Billionaire Hillary Smith's inappropriate office affair. Beneath it were the photographs. Her and Hillary right outside her apartment building, his hand lost in her hair as they kissed. Another with her legs wrapped around his waist, pinning him against the doorframe. Then one from his penthouse, their bodies silhouetted and tangled together, perfectly visible through the vast windows. The article was pure venom. It tore into the power dynamics, branding her a gold digger who was trading her body for a leg up in her career, painting Hillary as a man deep in a pathetic midlife crisis. It was littered with quotes from anonymous sources who expressed grave concerns about his judgment, his fitness as a father, and his very ability to lead the company. And then Liliana's phone exploded. A relentless flood of text messages, emails, and social media notifications poured in, so overwhelming it caused her phone to freeze. She made the mistake of opening Twitter and immediately wished she could take it back. The comments were absolutely savage. She was being called every degrading name a person could conjure. People who had never met her, who knew nothing about her, were suddenly experts on her morals, her mind, and her worth. Someone had managed to dig up her old college photos, reposting them with lewd, disgusting captions. Another account had created an entire thread dedicated to every outfit she'd ever worn to work, analyzing each one to determine if she was dressing to seduce her boss. She felt like she was going to be sick. Just then, Hillary appeared in his office doorway, his face as pale as a ghost. "Liliana, my office, now." She followed him numb. He shut the door and drew the blinds. "I'm handling this," he stated, his voice tight. "My lawyers are already on it." "How did they get those pictures?" He paused for a fraction of a second. "I don't know. I have people investigating what it—" This was Claudette, wasn't it? He didn't bother to deny it. "Probably," he admitted, "but we have no proof." Liliana let out a hollow, brittle laugh. "Of course we don't. She's much too smart for that." She wrapped her arms around her waist, trying to hold herself together. "Have you seen what people are saying about me online? Don't read it. Don't you dare look at any of it." "How am I supposed to do that? My name is everywhere. My face is—" Her voice fractured. "I can't even get to my car without someone taking my picture." Hillary started toward her, trying to gather her into his arms, but she flinched away. "Don't. Not in here. This is what started all of this." A flash of pain crossed his features. "We will get through this." "Will we?" "Because I'm sure your lawyers are advising you to distance yourself from me, to put out a statement, end the relationship, and protect the business." His silence was all the confirmation she needed. "Oh my God." She stared at him in disbelief. "You're actually considering it?" "I am considering what is best for everyone involved." "You mean what's best for you? For your company? For your custody case?" No, that is not fair. Isn't it?" Anger was a welcome shield against the hurt. "So what's the plan?" "Hillary, I take a leave of absence, disappear for a while until all of this blows over. Let you pretend I don't exist. Just until the custody hearing is over. Just until I'm not an inconvenience anymore," she finished for him. "You are not an inconvenience." "Then what am I? An embarrassment? A liability?" "You're the woman I love." His voice cracked with frustration. "And I am trying to protect you from the worst of this by hiding me, by acting as if I'm the problem here. By keeping you out of the line of fire, Claudette will use this. She will go for full custody. She will destroy everything I have. Then let her try fight back. Show everyone that what we have is real and it's worth defending. I am fighting back by being strategic, not by handing her the ammunition to destroy me." Liliana looked at him then, and she saw the raw fear in his eyes. It wasn't just about losing the custody battle. It was about losing control, about being vulnerable in a way he had spent decades avoiding. "You're a coward," she said softly. He recoiled as if she'd slapped him. "Maybe I am, but I'm a coward who is trying to keep his daughter." "You can have both, Hillary. You could have Sloan and me," she pleaded quietly. "You can have it all if you're just brave enough to try." "What if I'm not?" The honest, brutal question hung in the air between them. Liliana felt something vital inside her snap. "Then I guess we're done here." She walked out of his office, sat down at her desk, and with shaking hands, she typed a new email. Resignation, effective immediately. It was professional cold, and every single word felt like a small death. She sent it to Hillary and to Jennifer, her finger hovering over the send button for what felt like an eternity before finally pressing down. It was done. She packed up her desk in under 10 minutes. All the little things that made the office hers, the snapshots of friends, the potted plant, meant to breathe life into the sterile space. Even the nice pens she'd splurged on were being boxed away as a horrified Jennifer looked on. Liliana, just wait. You don't need to go through with this. I do, she replied, but I appreciate everything you've done for me. She walked out of that building, for the final time collapsed into the driver's seat of her car, and finally let the dam break. A flood of tears lasted the entire journey home, continuing until she was completely hollowed out in her own apartment. Hillary reread the resignation email 17 times. Each word was a surgical incision, sharp, deliberate, with immediate and irreversible consequences. I wish you nothing but the best. He slid open a drawer in his desk, revealing a small velvet box he'd been hiding for a week. Tucked inside was a ring and understated platinum band holding a solitary diamond. It was elegant, flawless. It was her. He'd purchased it the day after their trip to Chicago, but had been too paralyzed with fear to present it, always waiting for a perfect moment that never came. He snapped the box shut, shoved it back into the drawer, and poured a drink that he left untouched. His phone vibrated against the polished wood. Sloan, you are being an absolute moron. That was Dad's assessment. Hillary squeezed his eyes shut. I'm aware. She's gone. I saw the news. They're celebrating online like it's some kind of victory. Are you just going to let her go? Are you not going to put up a fight? It's far more complex than that. No, it really isn't. You're in love with her. She's in love with you. Mom is on one of her psychotic tears as usual. The obvious play here is to tell Mom to back off and hold on to the girl. But you're paralyzed by fear, so you're choosing the most idiotic path forward. Honestly, Sloan, I'm embarrassed for you. I always thought you had more courage than this. The line went dead. Hillary just stared at the blank screen, his daughter's sharp words ricocheting in his head. He had raised a daughter who never backed away from a conflict, who fought for her convictions. When did he forget how to do the same? The next 2 weeks felt like 2 agonizing years. Liliana crashed with her friend, Maya, and found a position at a tiny nonprofit dedicated to helping struggling communities. The salary was a joke. The office was a shoebox, but for the first time in months, nobody gave a damn about her private life. There she was, just Liliana, not the woman from the tabloids, not the center of a scandal, not a headline. She convinced herself she was okay. She assured Maya she was putting it all behind her. But in the silence of the night, a deep ache for him would settle in, for the sound of his voice, the touch of his hands, for the way he alone made her feel completely seen, cherished, and loved. Maya eventually guilted her into attending a charity gala on a Saturday, arguing that she desperately needed to be out in the world surrounded by other people. Liliana only relented because Maya's nagging was relentless and because the nonprofit she now worked for was providing the catering. She figured she could easily fade into the background in her simple black server's uniform, just pouring wine and collecting empty plates. The event was being held at the Indianapolis Museum of Art, the very same place she had worn that cobalt blue dress, the same place she had danced with Hillary, and felt her entire universe tilt on its axis. She fought to push the memory down as she navigated the dense crowd with a tray of champagne glasses. And then she saw him. Hillary was standing clear across the grand hall, trapped in a tuxedo and encircled by a group of people looking utterly broken. His face was gaunt with dark circles etched beneath his eyes. He was thinner. He looked exactly how she felt inside. In that instant, their gazes locked and the entire world dissolved around them. The orchestra, the buzz of conversation, the sea of bodies, it all evaporated, leaving only the two of them, and the desperate way he looked at her, like a man dying of thirst who just found his only source of water. He began to move toward her. A wave of panic crashed over Liliana. She spun on her heel and fled into a service corridor. The sound of his dress shoes echoed behind her. Liliana, please wait. She whipped around. Don't, she pleaded. Just don't do this. He froze a few feet away, holding his hands up as if trying to calm a spooked horse. I just need to speak with you. You had 2 weeks to speak to me. You made your choice, silence. I was a fool. I've been a fool about absolutely everything. A bitter, humorless laugh escaped her. Do you have any clue what my life has been like for the past few weeks? Being vilified online, losing the career I built, all while you stood by and pretended I didn't even exist as the whole city ripped me to shreds. A wave of pure agony washed over his features. I know, and I am so sorry. Sorry doesn't even begin to cover it. He took another step, his voice thick with desperation. Then tell me what will. Tell me what I need to do to fix this. You can't. You already made your decision. My decision was you. It was always you. I was just too damn scared to admit it. He closed the remaining distance. I love you, Liliana. I am completely in love with you. And I have no idea how to be the man you deserve, but I swear I am willing to learn. I will do whatever it takes. Just please don't write us off. His voice cracked on the final plea. Liliana felt her defenses crumble, the raw anger and profound hurt warring with a love that had never truly died. You broke me into a million pieces, she whispered. I know, he breathed, and if you'll let me, I will spend every single day of my life meticulously putting you back together. She surged forward, grabbing the lapels of his tuxedo and crushing her lips against his. It was a kiss fueled by fury and desperation and forgiveness all at once, a kiss that poured 2 weeks of pure agony into a single moment. He responded like a starving man, his hands cupping her face, a sound tearing from his throat that was half groan, half pure relief. When they finally broke for air, they were both breathing heavily, tears streaming down her face. If you ever hurt me like that again, she began. I won't. I give you my word. He rested his forehead against hers. I promise that every day I'll make the effort. I promise I will stand and fight for you instead of taking the coward's way out and pushing you away. I promise you are the single most important thing in my life, and I was an absolute fool to ever let myself forget that. She pulled away just enough to read his eyes. What are you going to do about Claudette? The hearing. Let her bring it on. I am finished being afraid of her. I'm finished choosing the safe path over the path to happiness. His thumb gently brushed across her cheekbone. I'm choosing you. It will always be you. The board can either get on board or they can find themselves a new CEO. Hillary, I'm done caring. He growled, his voice raw as he cornered her against the cold wall. There hasn't been anyone else. Not since you. I haven't even wanted to look at another woman. You've completely wrecked me for anyone else. Then let's get out of here, she urged. After a quick word to Maya, she was gone with him. They practically fell into the street, barely reaching his car, before he crushed his lips to hers. He pressed her against the passenger side door, his hand finding its way up her thigh, all self-control obliterated. God, I've missed you, he whispered, his breath hot against her lips. Every single minute. The entire drive to his penthouse was a dizzying, indistinct haze. The moment they burst through his front door, clothes were torn away in a desperate flurry. He took her right there against the wall, then on the couch and finally in his bed, as if trying to pour 2 weeks of lost time and desperation into one single frantic night. And as she finally came apart in his arms, for the third time his name escaping her lips, as a broken sob, he clutched her as if she were the most fragile thing in the world. Never again, he whispered into her hair. I will never let you leave me again. You damn well better mean that. I mean it more than anything, he said, reaching for the jacket he tossed on the floor. He retrieved a small velvet box, and the air left her lungs in a gasp. Hillary, wait, this isn't a proposal, he rushed to say. I just needed you to know. I bought this the morning after we left Chicago. It's been in my pocket ever since because I was too much of a coward to show it to you. Then I let my own stupidity get in the way. Just look at it. I need you to see it to understand how serious I was then and how serious I am right now. He lifted the lid. Inside a ring, simple, perfect, glinted in the dim light. Tears welled in Liliana's eyes. It's absolutely beautiful. It'll be here for you whenever you're ready. There's no pressure, zero expectations. It's yours when the time is right. She leaned in and kissed him, a soft, lingering promise. Ask me again tomorrow. A smile bloomed against her lips. I will. I will. Wrapped in each other's arms, they drifted off to sleep, completely oblivious to the silent car parked across the street. They never saw the man inside his camera aimed at the penthouse windows or the email that was dispatched moments later. To Claudette Smith, its subject line reading, more ammunition. A mere 7 days later, Hillary found himself seated inside a sterile conference room at the Moran County Courthouse. He was surrounded by his legal counsel as Claudette's attorneys began their methodical assault intent on tearing his life apart. Mr. Smith, is it not a fact that you were involved in an intimate relationship with an employee who was more than 20 years younger than you? Hillary's counsel immediately objected, but the judge swiftly overruled. Hillary's gaze locked with the opposing attorney's unwavering. Yes. And would you agree that this very relationship ignited a public scandal, casting a dark shadow on your company's reputation and consequently on your own professional judgment? It wasn't the relationship that created the scandal. The gross violation of our privacy is what did that. Surely you must concede the relationship was inappropriate considering the inherent power imbalance. No, what I will concede is that two consenting adults happened to fall in love. There was absolutely no coercion involved, nor was there any abuse of my position. Liliana Fischer is an exceptionally brilliant and capable woman who made her own choice to be with me. The opposing counsel's smile was pure predator. And yet, isn't it true she resigned her position almost immediately after this affair was exposed? Doesn't that fact strongly imply she felt coerced? No, it implies that I was a fool who out of fear shoved away the single greatest thing that ever happened to me. But I'm done being afraid. The attorney then shifted tactics, meticulously detailing his long work hours and frequent travel, crafting a narrative of a perpetually absent father. In response, Hillary's own legal team presented testimony from Sloane's teachers and even the parents of her friends, each one painting a portrait of a deeply devoted and consistently present father. And then they called Sloane to the stand. She entered the room in a navy dress Hillary didn't recognize, her hair neatly pulled back, appearing far more mature than her 16 years. After being sworn in, she took her seat and fixed her gaze on her mother, her expression completely devoid of warmth. Sloane Claudate's attorney began, his tone deceptively soft. Considering your father's recent conduct, do you feel safe in his care? Sloane turned her attention directly to the judge. Your Honor, rather than answering these biased questions, may I please just say what needs to be said? A corner of the judge's mouth twitched upward. Proceed, Miss Smith. All right, look, my dad's not perfect. He can be a workaholic. He's obsessive about things being organized, and he's a terrible cook. But the thing is, he shows up. He's there for every school function, every single debate tournament, and every 3 in the morning meltdown I have about getting into college. He actually listens. He genuinely cares. And yeah, so he fell for someone younger. What's the big deal? Liliana makes him genuinely happy. I hear him laugh now. I've never seen him this way, and it's a good thing. Then she pivoted to face her mother head on. My mother is only fighting for custody because she's angry that my father found someone else. It's not because she genuinely wants to be with me. She hardly ever calls me. And when I'm forced to visit her, attention is glued to her phone or she's just out with her friends. My dad is the one who knows what I love to eat. He knows all my friends' names, and he knows I have a penicillin allergy. Dad was the one who was there for me when I came out. He's the one who met up my girlfriend and went out of his way to make her feel welcome, even though I could tell he was having a total internal meltdown. The courtroom was utterly still. Tears glistened in Hillary's eyes. Sloane concluded, her gaze locked on the judge. If you award her custody, I will run away. I'm not making an idle threat. I will vanish and my dad will destroy himself trying to find me. So I'm begging you, please don't put either of us through that. With that, she was excused. On her way from the stand, she passed her father and gave his shoulder a firm squeeze. He reached out, capturing her hand and holding it for a long, emotion-filled moment. Watching from the gallery, Liliana felt something inside her break. She couldn't stay silent a second longer. She rose to her feet. Your Honor, permission to speak. The judge, clearly taken aback, gave a slight nod. You may approach the bench. Liliana moved toward the front of the courtroom, feeling the weight of every single stare. Her eyes fixed on Claudette, then Hillary, then settled on the judge. My name is Liliana Fischer. I am the woman in those photographs. And while it's true I'm younger than Mr. Smith and that we are colleagues, I must be clear about one thing. He was not the one who pursued a relationship. I was. He resisted it. He was trying to shield me from this very moment from being slandered and condemned by people who know nothing about me. She pivoted, her full attention landing squarely on Claudette. This has nothing to do with Sloane. You're doing this because you can't accept that he has found happiness, that he's with someone who values him for more than his net worth or the status he provides. You're trying to destroy him for moving on with his life, and you don't care if you destroy your own daughter in the process. Turning back to the bench, she continued, Your Honor, Hillary Smith is the finest man I have ever known. He is a man of patience and deep kindness, and his love for his daughter is the most important thing in his entire world. If you sever that bond, you will be punishing an extraordinary father simply because he had the courage to love again. That isn't justice, it is pure cruelty. Without another word, she returned to her seat. Hillary could only gaze at her, his eyes shining as he silently mouthed the words, "Thank you." The judge declared a recess. When she returned 27 minutes later, the courtroom fell silent. "I have carefully considered all the evidence presented and testimony given," she announced. "I see no compelling reason to modify the existing custody agreement. Joint custody will be maintained with primary residence remaining with Mr. Smith. This court has found no indication of parental unfitness or any behavior that would place the child at risk. We are adjourned." The gavel struck, the sound echoing through the room. Claudette's face was a mask of pure fury. Hillary finally let out a breath he felt like he'd been holding for an eternity. On the courthouse steps, a storm of reporters was waiting. Hillary paid them no mind, his eyes desperately searching the crowd until he spotted Liliana. He moved through the chaos to her side. "You never should have had to do that." "Yes," she whispered, "I did." He framed her face with his hands, utterly ignoring the flashing cameras. "I love you." He then kissed her, a slow, profound kiss, for everyone to see, the press, the lawyers, and Claudette. Let them watch. Let them finally understand. When he finally broke the kiss, he held her tightly against him. "Do you remember yesterday when you told me I should ask you my question again tomorrow?" Her heart hammered against her ribs. "Hillary, it's tomorrow." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small velvet box. "But I'm going to do this properly this time." He then went down on one knee right there on the courthouse steps. Liliana's hands flew to her lips in disbelief. "Liliana Fischer, you came into my world when I thought I'd never feel anything real again. You are courageous and brilliant, and every day you inspire me to be a better man. I know I don't deserve you, but I'm going to be selfish and ask you anyway. Will you marry me?" Tears streamed down her face as she nodded vigorously. "Yes." With trembling hands, he slid the ring onto her finger, then rose to kiss her again amidst a frenzy of camera flashes and applause. Sloane suddenly materialized next to them, recording it all on her phone. "Oh, this is going to make Mom absolutely lose it," she said with a grin. Hillary chuckled, his face buried in Liliana's hair. "I know, and I don't care. Welcome to the family, Liliana. I'm sorry you have to put up with us." Liliana pulled the girl into their hug. "This is the best choice I've ever made." 6 months down the line, Liliana woke up in a home that still felt like a beautiful dream. The Meridian Kessler estate was a magnificent, sprawling property, far larger than two people needed, with gardens that she was patiently filling with roses and lavender, a library Hillary had built just for her, and a sun-drenched kitchen where she started each day with her coffee. That morning, she discovered Hillary was already outside in the garden. He was barefoot, dressed in jeans and a tee, his hair still a wonderful mess from sleep, and he was busy assembling something, cursing quietly to himself. "What on earth are you building?" she asked, leaning against the doorframe. He glanced up, flashing that breathtaking, genuine smile she adored. "A doghouse. We don't own a dog. We will in roughly 3 hours." He walked toward her and gave her a file. It contained adoption forms from the Indianapolis Humane Society for a golden retriever rescue named Biscuit. Tears welled in Liliana's eyes. "But you hate dogs." "I don't hate your dog." She kissed him, tasting coffee and the fresh morning air and the feeling of being home. "You're getting sentimental in your old age." "Only when it comes to you." He drew her in his hands, resting on her hips. "Did you sleep well?" "Much better after you finally came to bed. What had you doing up at 5 a.m.? My mind was racing. I'm just energized about the merger discussions this week." She was now the chief operating officer of Smith Holdings, a title she had fought for over 6 months, proving her worth to the board, the employees, and every skeptic. The merger was her brainchild, her strategy from start to finish, and Hillary had given her complete autonomy to see it through. "Feeling the pressure?" he asked, easily reading her expression, completely terrified. "You are going to be magnificent." "You always are." They spent the rest of the morning working together in their shared study, fine-tuning their approach and going over the financials. At noon, Sloane showed up with her girlfriend, Tessa, both of them carrying an enormous amount of Thai takeout. "Weekend invasion," Sloane declared. "Tessa's folks are being a pain about the whole us thing, so we're taking refuge here." Hillary gave Tessa a warm hug. "You are both always welcome in this house." The four of them had lunch out in the garden, soon joined by Biscuit, who arrived from the shelter and immediately decided Sloane was his person. Hillary watched his daughter's unrestrained laughter, saw Liliana gently chiding her for spoiling their new pet, and observed the beautiful family they had managed to forge from brokenness, feeling a profound sense of peace settle deep within his soul. Later that night, once Sloane and Tessa had settled into the guest room and the dog had been walked and fed, Hillary discovered Liliana still immersed in her work in the study. "Come to bed," his voice rumbled from the doorway. "Just 10 more minutes." In a few strides, he was behind her, spinning her chair around and pulling her onto his lap. A laugh escaped her as she instinctively wrapped her arms around his neck. "You can't resist," she teased, "and I can't resist you." He captured her lips in a slow, possessive kiss, his hands already finding their way beneath her shirt. "Bed, now, I have designs on you." "What sort of designs?" His gaze intensified. "The kind that are meant to remind you in no uncertain terms exactly who you belong to." A coil of heat tightened deep inside him. "I belong to myself, thank you very much." "All right then," he conceded smoothly. "Let me remind you who you've sworn your life to." "Much better, and I'll tell you my plans after you've finished with your reminder." He rose to his feet, lifting her with him as if she weighed nothing, and headed for the stairs. Partway up, she whispered, "We have guests. 2 of them are 17 and have zero interest in hearing this." "They won't," he promised, setting her down inside their bedroom before shutting and locking the door behind them. "This has been on my mind all day," he confessed, his voice husky. "You've been on my mind. So unless the word you're looking for is no, it's not. I'm not saying no." A smile equal parts predatory and adoring spread across his face. "Good." He began to undress her with painstaking slowness, his lips trailing fire over every new inch of exposed skin, murmuring promises and praises against her throat, her collarbone, her breasts. When she was finally bare, he just stared. "What is it?" she asked, her voice a breathless whisper. "Nothing and everything," he breathed. "There are moments when I still can't comprehend that you're real, that you chose this life, that you chose me." She tugged him down, silencing him with a profound kiss. "Every single day, without hesitation, I choose you." He made love to her with an exquisite, aching tenderness, whispering again and again how she had saved him, how much he adored her, and how he would dedicate his life to ensuring she never questioned her choice. Later, as they lay tangled in the sheets, blissfully exhausted, he pressed a soft kiss to her temple. "Do you ever have second thoughts?" he asked, his voice barely audible. "About this, about me?" She feigned deep contemplation for a moment. "Every day." He went utterly still beside her. A wicked grin bloomed on her face. "I regret that I didn't find you and choose you so much sooner." He let out a sharp laugh, then retaliated with a merciless tickle attack. She shrieked with laughter, and he clamped a hand over her mouth, their shared amusement echoing the carefree joy of children. "I love you," he murmured once they'd quieted, "even when you're being a little terror." "I love you too," she returned, "even when you're completely impossible." They drifted off to sleep just like that, perfectly entwined. Outside their window, the city lights sparkled a vast universe of promise. The following morning, on a lazy, slow-moving Sunday, Hillary found Liliana once more in the study, her focus entirely on her laptop. He just leaned against the doorframe, watching her. Her hair a chaotic pile atop her head, her body draped in one of his shirts, her concentration absolute. She was without a doubt the most magnificent sight he had ever beheld. She glanced up, catching his intense gaze. "What? Nothing, you're just doing that thing again." "What thing?" "That thing where you look at me as if—" She trailed off, a faint blush rising on her cheeks. He closed the distance between them, pulling her up out of the chair and into a powerful embrace. "As if I'm utterly and irrevocably in love with you. As if you're the single greatest thing that's ever happened to me, and as if I still can't believe you're mine." "Yes, that thing," she mumbled into his chest. "You better get used to it. I intend to be looking at you that way for the next 60 years. She melted against him. "Only 60, fine, 70, or with any luck, maybe 80. They swayed gently in the silence of the study, the morning sun pouring through the windows, and for a moment the world was perfect. "So," Liliana said, pulling back with a devilish smile. "Office or bedroom?" He arched an eyebrow. "It's barely 10 a.m. And, and we have a teenager and her girlfriend somewhere downstairs. They took the dog for a walk. That buys us at least 30 minutes. His hand slid from her waist to the curve of her hips. "You're insatiable." "Are you complaining?" Never, he said, gently backing her toward the desk. But for the record, you started this. I started this 6 months ago when I agreed to be your wife. No, you started it a year ago when you stormed into my building and picked a fight with my security. Her laugh was a beautiful sound. He immediately swallowed with a kiss, lifting her to sit on the edge of the desk and stepping into the space between her legs. Do you know what I was thinking that day? He murmured, his lips brushing against hers. That I was infuriating, that you were the most dangerously beautiful creature I had ever seen, and that I was already in serious trouble. And now, his kiss traveled down the column of her throat, his hand slipping beneath her shirt. His shirt. Now I am completely undone by you, and I wouldn't want it any other way. She pulled him closer, her fingers weaving into his hair. Then it's your turn to ruin me. And he did with a thorough, agonizing slowness until they were both left breathless and giddy and hopelessly perfectly in love. They had fought so hard against falling for each other. It was a spectacular failure. And in the end, that failure was the greatest victory either of them had ever known. The end. If the odyssey of Hillary and Liliana has left you breathless, if you champion them through every trial, every crisis of faith, every fiery reconciliation, then you've just felt the power of a romance that doesn't just entertain, it changes you. This is the story of two souls who were a universe of logic screamed for them to walk away, yet a single undeniable truth compelled them to wage war for one another. This is a story about choosing raw vulnerability over armored control, about forging a partnership instead of a fortress. If these are the stories that feed your soul, subscribe and become part of our circle. I'd love to know what you thought on a scale from 1 to 10, and please share the one moment that truly gripped you in the comments. And hey, be good to yourself. I'll meet you in the next chapter. All my love.